Ducati Lenovo team. Here's the thing about being the best. Everyone expects perfection. And when you're Ducati, winning constructors' championships like it's a hobby, any weakness gets magnified under a microscope. The 2025 season exposed a massive crack in the red armor. Francesco Bagnaia, two-time world champion, went from 11 wins in 2024 to just 4 in 2025. The problem? Front-end feel, or the lack of it. Bagnaia struggled all season with front-end confidence on the GP25. He couldn't brake as late or as hard as he used to. His data from 2024 on the GP24 looked completely different from his 2025 data. And here's the kicker. Alex Marquez on the year-old GP24 was outscoring him for most of the season. Think about that. A satellite rider on last year's bike beating the factory rider on this year's bike. The GP25 was supposed to be an evolution. Ducati even reverted to a modified 2024 engine during winter testing. When they realized the original GP25 engine wasn't working, they called it the GP24.9. Didn't matter. Bagnaia still couldn't find the feeling. He tried bigger brake discs at Aragon, small improvement. But at tracks without heavy braking zones, he was back to square one. Marc Marquez adapted to it. Di Giannantonio managed it. But Bagnaia, the guy who won 2 titles on Ducati machinery, was stuck. He finished 257 points behind his teammate. That's not a gap. That's a canyon. The weakness wasn't just the bike. It was that Ducati built something that didn't suit their defending champion style. And with the engine homologated from round 1, there was no fixing it mid-season. For a manufacturer that dominated with 6 bikes on the grid, having your factory star struggle this badly is a problem no amount of constructor points can hide. Pramac Yamaha. This was supposed to be a fresh start. Pramac ditched Ducati, the manufacturer they'd won races with, to partner with Yamaha. New colors, new opportunity, new nightmare. Yamaha's M1 in 2025 was the slowest bike on the grid. Not just a bit slow. Dead last in straight-line speed. The inline-4 engine couldn't compete with the V4s from Ducati, Aprilia, KTM, and Honda. Pramac had 2 riders, Jack Miller and Miguel Oliveira. Miller qualified 4th in Thailand. Everyone got excited. Then race day came, and reality hit. He finished 11th. That was his best result all year. Oliveira barely got to race. He got injured at Argentina in round 2 and missed massive chunks of the season. Augusto Fernandez stepped in as a replacement. Here's the stat that tells you everything. Not a single Pramac Yamaha finished in the top 10 of a Grand Prix all season. Not one. Miller and Oliveira struggled with tire degradation. The bike couldn't generate heat early in the stint. Then, when it finally did, it ate the tires alive. Every rider on the 4 Yamahas complained about the same thing. When tires lost grip, other bikes lost 2/10. Yamaha lost 10 seconds. That's what Max Bartolini, Yamaha's technical director, said. For Pramac, this was brutal. They left a winning Ducati program for this. Yes, they got financial incentives. Yes, they got factory support. But they traded race wins and podiums for points finishes. If they were lucky. The worst part? Yamaha knew they had problems. They introduced a V4 engine late in the season. Test riders ran it. It wasn't ready. It won't be fully ready until 2026 at the earliest. So Pramac signed up for a multi-year deal, knowing year 1 would be a washout. That's not a weakness. That's a strategic gamble that didn't pay off. Aprilia Racing. Aprilia signed the reigning world champion, Jorge Martin, fresh off beating Bagnaia for the 2024 title. The number 1 plate on his bike. Sky-high expectations. Then everything fell apart. Martin only completed 7 races out of 22. 7. He missed 15 rounds due to injuries. It started in preseason testing. Fractures to his right hand and left foot in Sepang. Then he broke his left hand in Supermoto training. Then came Qatar. His first race back. Lap 14. He crashed and got hit by Fabio Di Giannantonio's bike. 11 broken ribs. Hemop pneumothorax. Punctured lung. He was in the hospital fearing for his life. Martin missed the next 10 rounds. When he came back at Brno, he showed speed. 4th in Hungary looked promising. Then Japan happened. He collided with teammate Marco Bezzecchi on lap 1 of the sprint. Broken collarbone. Out for another 4 rounds. In total, Martin spent more time in the hospital than on the podium. And during his recovery, he tried to leave Aprilia. He told them he wanted out. He wanted to go to Honda. Aprilia said no. Contract dispute. Threats of legal action. It got ugly. Eventually, Martin stayed. But the damage was done. Aprilia's weakness wasn't the RSGP. The bike was good. Bezzecchi proved that with 3 wins. Raul Fernandez won in Australia. The weakness was that their star signing, their title defense hope, their number 1 rider, couldn't stay healthy. And when he was hurt, he wanted to quit. That kind of instability doesn't just affect results. It affects morale, development direction, and team cohesion. vision. You can't build a championship campaign around a rider who's never there. And Aprilia learned that the hard way in 2025. Red Bull KTM Factory Racing. Pedro Acosta called 2025 a wasted year of his life. That's not frustration, that's a verdict. KTM entered the season facing financial catastrophe. 3 billion euros in debt, self-administration, workforce reductions, factories closed. The entire MotoGP project was in jeopardy. Bajaj, their majority shareholder, questioned whether MotoGP was even worth the investment. Development stopped, not slowed down, stopped. The RC16 Acosta rode at round 1 was basically the same bike from the end of 2024. Everyone else improved. KTM stood still. Acosta struggled for the first half of the season, 9th in the championship after 11 rounds with 99 points. Frustrated, angry, crashing, he admitted he lost the plot. He was pushing a bike that couldn't do what he demanded. Then, mid-season, KTM brought an aero update. Suddenly, Acosta found form. He scored 208 points in the second half, 12 podiums, no wins. That's the problem. KTM's last dry weather win was Catalunya 2021. Their last wet win was Thailand 2022. In 2025, despite Acosta's podiums, they couldn't win a single race. Not even close. Brad Binder finished 152 points behind Acosta, and Nea Bastianini was inconsistent. Maverick Vinales and the Tech 3 crew were nowhere. Acosta told his manager to find him a way out. He doesn't want to be there in 2027. Honda, VR46, Ducati, all interested. KTM's weakness isn't just performance, it's existential. They can't develop, they can't win, and they can't keep their best rider from looking elsewhere. That's not a bad season. That's a crisis of identity. Monster Energy Yamaha Factory Racing. Yamaha had one job in 2025, prove the inline 4 could still compete. They failed, spectacularly. The M1 was the slowest bike in every speed trap, 205 km/h average in some races. Ducatis were hitting 215. That's a 10 km/h deficit. On straights, Yamaha riders watched everyone pull away like they were standing still. Fabio Quartararo qualified on pole 5 times, more than anyone except Marc Marquez, but he couldn't convert. His best finish was a single podium. Alex Rins finished 19th in the championship. His best result was 10th, and he only got that because it was a crash-filled race. Yamaha's problem was multifaceted. First, power. The inline 4 couldn't match the V4s. Less horsepower means less top speed and less ability to create downforce. Second, tire degradation. The M1 destroyed tires. When grip dropped, the bike became unrideable. Quartararo and Rins both said the same thing. The bike felt great for 5 laps. Then it fell off a cliff. Third, race pace. Yamaha was okay in qualifying, terrible on Sundays. Not a single M1 finished in the top 10 of a Grand Prix until deep into the season. Yamaha's answer? Abandon the inline 4. They introduced a V4 late in the season. Augusto Fernandez wildcarded it at a few races. It wasn't fast. It wasn't stable. It was a prototype, and it won't be race-ready until 2026 at the earliest. So Yamaha's weakness in 2025 was racing, with a bike they knew was obsolete. They'd already decided to scrap it, but they had to run it for an entire season while everyone else moved forward. That's not racing. That's damage control. Castrol Honda HRC. Honda made progress in 2025. Real progress. They cut their gap to the winner from 30 seconds to 13.5 seconds. They moved from D to C concessions. Joan Mir and Johan Zarco were regularly scoring points. But here's the thing. They still don't have enough power. The RC213V improved in handling, improved in front-end feel, improved in stability. The aero package got better. The electronics got better. But the engine, still down on horsepower compared to Ducati and Aprilia. Honda's engineers admitted it. They worked on power delivery. They worked on making it rideable. But top-end speed, still lacking. Zarco said it straight. The engine was better in Malaysia than in Thailand. The heat in Thailand hurt them more than other manufacturers. That's a power issue. At circuits with long straights, Honda riders got walked. They could brake later. They could carry more corner speed. But they couldn't close the gap on acceleration. Zarco won in the wet at Le Mans. That was brilliant. But it was also the perfect conditions for Honda. No power disadvantage in the rain. Just rider skill and bike handling. In the dry, top 5 was a good day. Podiums were rare. Wins were impossible. Honda's weakness is that despite all their improvements, they're still fundamentally slower in a straight line. And in MotoGP, if you can't keep up on the straights, you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back. They'll move to C concessions in 2026. That means less testing, fewer engine upgrades, tighter restrictions, and they still haven't fixed the power problem. That's progress with a ceiling. Gresini Racing. Alex Marquez had an incredible season, second in the championship, 3 race wins, beat Francesco Bagnaia on a year-old bike, the GP24. That sounds like pure success. But here's Gresini's weakness. They maxed out what the GP24 could do, and it still wasn't enough to beat Marc Marquez. Alex was fast because the GP24 had better front-end feel than the GP25. It suited more riders, more predictable braking, better stability on corner entry, but it's still last year's machinery. And when Marc figured out the GP25, the gap opened up. Alex couldn't match the development curve. Fermin Aldeguer, his teammate, had a solid rookie season, took his first win in Indonesia, showed flashes of speed, but he also crashed 17 times. Learning curve on an old bike. Gresini's weakness is the paradox of satellite racing. They had the better Ducati for part of the season. The GP24 worked. The GP25 didn't, but they don't get the factory support. They don't get the latest updates mid-season. They're stuck with what they homologated at round 1. And when the factory gets it right, satellites can't compete. Alex gave everything. He won races. He beat a factory Ducati rider, but he still finished 73 points behind his brother. That's the satellite ceiling. Fast enough to win battles, not fast enough to win the war. VR46 Ducati. VR46 ran both the GP25 and GP24 in 2025. Fabio Di Giannantonio on the new bike. Franco Morbidelli on the old one. They finished 1 point apart. That tells you everything. Di Giannantonio struggled with the same front-end issues Bagnaia had. The GP25 didn't suit his style. 4 podiums, no wins, frustration building. He's a talented rider stuck on a bike that won't let him show it. Morbidelli on the GP24 wasn't much better. Inconsistent. Flashes of speed followed by anonymous weekends. 1 point separated them. VR46's weakness was having 2 bikes with 2 different problems and no clear path forward. The GP25 is faster in theory, but not in Di Giannantonio's hands. The GP24 is proven, but it's old, and Morbidelli couldn't extract maximum performance from it. The team was stuck in development limbo. Try to maximize the new bike that doesn't work, or lean on the old bike that's past its prime. They chose both, and got neither. VR46 couldn't crack the podium consistently, couldn't challenge for wins, couldn't give Valentino Rossi's team the results they needed. That's not a bike problem. That's a strategic problem. When your 2 riders on 2 different bikes finish with nearly identical results, you're not maximizing either package. That's the VR46 weakness in 2025. LCR Honda. Samkiat Chantra had the toughest job in MotoGP. First Thai rider in the Premier class. Rookie season. On the slowest bike on the grid. LCR gave him a Honda RC213V that, despite improvements, was still at the back of the pack. He never looked comfortable. He wasn't fast. His best finish was 15th, maybe 16th. He was fighting just to stay in the points. That's not a reflection on Chantra. That's a reflection on LCR's situation. They're a satellite Honda team with limited resources, trying to develop a rookie on an uncompetitive package. Johan Zarco, his teammate, won at Le Mans in the wet, showed what the bike could do in the right conditions. But Chantra didn't have Zarco's experience. He didn't have the years of data. He didn't have the racecraft to maximize a difficult bike. LCR's weakness was putting a rookie in an impossible position. You can't develop a rider and develop a bike at the same time when you're already behind. Chantra needed a better bike to learn on. LCR needed an experienced rider to give feedback. They had neither, and the result was a season of struggle. No breakthrough, no development, just survival. That's the LCR weakness. Limited resources meeting unlimited challenges. Trackhouse Aprilia. Trackhouse switched from satellite status to factory-supported Aprilia in 2025. Raul Fernandez and rookie Ayogura on the RSGP. The bike was competitive. Aprilia finished second in the Constructors' Championship, but Trackhouse couldn't capitalize consistently. Fernandez won in Australia. First MotoGP win. Massive moment. 2 other podiums. Proof the bike worked. But then, he'd disappear for 3-4 races in a row. Nowhere near the front, fighting for points. The speed was there. The consistency wasn't. Ogura had a tough rookie season, learning the Aprilia, learning MotoGP. He showed flashes, but never really threatened for podiums. The jump from Moto2 to MotoGP is massive, and doing it on a competitive bike adds pressure. Trackhouse's weakness was capitalizing on opportunity. They had factory support. They had a bike capable of winning. Fernandez proved that. But 1 win and 2 podiums across 2 riders for an entire season, that's underperforming. performing. Aprilia gave them the tools. They couldn't maximize them. That's growing pains. That's a team still learning how to fight at the front. They're not slow. They're just not consistent. And in MotoGP, inconsistency kills championships. Trackhouse has potential, but in 2025, potential didn't translate to points often enough. That's the weakness.